On a cold and quiet morning in Weston-super-Mare, a seaside town in Somerset, England, events unfolded that would later shock the nation. The date was November 23, 2017, and the day began like any other. However, as dawn broke, the lives of those involved in this tragic tale would be irreversibly changed. This is the story of Owen Pellow and Lisa Marie Thornton, a chilling account of a relationship that spiraled into violence and ultimately ended in one of the most harrowing crimes the small town had ever seen. Lisa Marie Thornton was a 36-year-old mother of three. Described by friends and family as bubbly, warm, and fiercely devoted to her children, Lisa was someone who brought light into the lives of those around her. However, behind closed doors, her life was far from the idyllic picture many assumed. Lisa was in a relationship with Owen Pellow, a 43-year-old man whose quiet demeanor masked a far darker personality. Their relationship was turbulent, marked by frequent arguments, financial difficulties, and a growing undercurrent of control and tension. For years, Lisa had confided in close friends about her struggles with Owen, but she always seemed determined to make the relationship work, often brushing off concerns with a nervous laugh or a vague reassurance that things would get better. At 7:30 a.m., emergency services received a frantic call from Owen Pellow. His voice trembled as he reported that Lisa had stabbed herself in the chest during what he described as a sudden and desperate act. Paramedics rushed to their home on Barrow Road, arriving within minutes in hopes of saving a life. But when they stepped inside, they found a scene that suggested a much darker reality. Lisa lay lifeless on the kitchen floor, surrounded by a pool of blood. Her body bore multiple stab wounds to the chest and abdomen, injuries that were immediately deemed suspicious. A blood-stained kitchen knife was found nearby. Despite Owen's claims that Lisa had harmed herself, the scene told a different story, one of violence and struggle. Lisa was pronounced dead at the scene. The tragedy seemed at first glance to be an unfortunate case of self-inflicted harm. However, as investigators began their work, inconsistencies in Owen's account and the physical evidence began to unravel his version of events. Owen claimed Lisa had been despondent in the days leading up to her death, speaking about feeling overwhelmed and unable to cope. He said that on the morning in question, Lisa had suddenly grabbed a knife from the kitchen counter and stabbed herself in a fit of despair. He insisted he had tried to stop her but was too late. Owen's behavior during the investigation raised immediate suspicions. His story changed under questioning, and his demeanor was described by police as cold and detached. While he showed signs of distress, his reactions seemed rehearsed rather than genuine. Furthermore, the wounds on Lisa's body did not align with self-inflicted injuries. Forensic experts quickly determined that the angle and depth of the stab wounds were consistent with an attack rather than a suicide attempt. Blood spatter analysis suggested that Lisa had been standing during the attack and had likely been trying to defend herself. There were no defensive wounds on her hands, however, which further suggested she was caught off guard. As detectives delved deeper into the couple's history, a troubling pattern of control and abuse began to emerge. Friends and family described Owen as controlling, with a tendency to isolate Lisa from those close to her. He was known for his temper, and although Lisa rarely spoke openly about their conflicts, those closest to her knew that the relationship was far from healthy. In the weeks leading up to her death, Lisa had confided in a friend that she was scared of Owen and felt trapped. She had expressed a desire to leave him but feared how he might react. The night before Lisa's death, neighbors reported hearing raised voices coming from the house. One neighbor later recounted hearing a loud argument that lasted for hours. At one point, Lisa's voice was heard shouting, "Just leave me alone," followed by what sounded like objects being thrown. These accounts painted a picture of a volatile relationship that had reached its breaking point. The timeline of events on the night of November 22nd and the early hours of November 23rd became critical to the investigation. CCTV footage from a local convenience store showed Lisa and Owen together at around 8 p.m. They appeared to be arguing outside the store, with Lisa visibly upset. Later that night, neighbors heard intermittent shouting from the couple's home. The argument reportedly continued into the early hours of the morning, growing louder as time went on. By 7 a.m., Lisa was dead. Owen Pellow was arrested on suspicion of murder shortly after Lisa's death. During his trial at Bristol Crown Court in 2018, the prosecution laid out a compelling case against him. They argued that Owen had killed Lisa in a fit of rage during one of their many arguments and then attempted to stage the scene to look like a suicide. Forensic evidence was a key part of the prosecution's case. Experts testified that the force and trajectory of the knife wounds were inconsistent with self-infliction. Additionally, blood evidence suggested that Lisa had been attacked while standing, rather than lying down as Owen had claimed. Owen's behavior during the trial further damaged his credibility. Despite maintaining his innocence, his lack of remorse and contradictory statements only served to strengthen the prosecution's case. He claimed to have loved Lisa and insisted that her death was a tragic accident, but his actions in the aftermath of her death told a different story. He had delayed calling emergency services, claiming he was too shocked to react. Furthermore, his attempts to portray Lisa as suicidal were contradicted by those who knew her. While she had struggled with personal challenges, Lisa was described as a devoted mother who would never have left her children willingly. After weeks of testimony, the jury found Owen Pellow guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 17 years. The verdict brought some measure of justice to Lisa's family, but it could not undo the pain of losing her. Her children were left to grow up without their mother, and her friends and family were left to grapple with the devastating loss of a woman whose life had been cut short by the very person she should have been able to trust most. The case of Owen Pellow and Lisa Marie Thornton remains a chilling reminder of the dangers of domestic violence. It is a stark illustration of how love can turn to control and how control can escalate to violence. For those who knew Lisa, her memory lives on as a symbol of strength and resilience, even